My sister stole my emotional support dog, so I used her smart collar to track her down. The notification pinged on my phone at 6:47 a.m. It was a location alert from my dog's smart collar, but the location wasn't my apartment. It wasn't the dog park. It wasn't my mother's house. It was a high-rise condo downtown. The kind with a doorman and a rooftop pool. The kind my sister could never afford on her wellness coach salary. I stared at the blinking dot on my screen, my coffee growing cold in my hand, and I felt something inside me crack. My emotional support dog, the animal that had gotten me through panic attacks, sleepless nights, and the worst breakup of my life, was 12 miles away, in my sister's building, without my permission. And the worst part? She'd posted him on her Instagram stories that morning, captioned, "New energy in the house," like he was a piece of decor she'd borrowed. She didn't just steal my dog, she stole my lifeline. My name is Rowan, and I'm the one who stayed close. I'm 28, a freelance graphic designer, and I live in a small one-bedroom apartment on the east side of the city, the kind with a creaky floorboard and a radiator that hisses like a disgruntled cat. My emotional support dog, Waffles, is a 3-year-old golden retriever mix with floppy ears and a soulful gaze that could make the Grinch weep. I've had him since he was a puppy, a scrappy little rescue who came into my life right after my father passed away. He was my anchor, my reason to get out of bed, my unpaid therapist with fur. My sister, Darcy, is 2 years older. She's a wellness coach with a modest following on Instagram, where she posts about manifesting abundance and aligning your chakras. She lives in a trendy high-rise downtown with her boyfriend, a tech bro named Kyle who talks about blockchain like it's a religion. Darcy has always been the glamorous one, the one who left our hometown the second she could, the one who never lets anyone forget she's made it. She's also the one who, last Thanksgiving, told me my anxiety was just a mindset problem, and that I should try positive energy instead of medication. The morning it happened, I was in the middle of a work deadline, headphones on, coffee ivy dripping into my system. Waffles was curled up on his bed by the window, snoring softly. Everything was normal. Then I got up to refill my mug, and I noticed the front door was slightly ajar. Not wide open, just not fully latched. I assumed I'd been careless. I pushed it closed and went back to work. It wasn't until an hour later, when I called Waffles for his midday walk, that I noticed the silence. No click of nails on the hardwood. No jingle of his collar. I called again. Nothing. Waffles? I walked through the apartment, checking the bathroom, the kitchen, even my closet. Nothing. My heart started to race, the familiar tightness in my chest that signaled a panic attack was brewing. I checked the door again. This time I noticed the lock was broken. Not broken from the outside, but from the inside. Someone had used a key. I had a spare key hidden under a fake rock. A spare key that only 3 people knew about. My mother, my best friend Chloe, and Darcy. I called my mother first. "Mom, did you take Waffles?" "What? No, sweetheart, I'm at the grocery store." "Why? He's gone." The door was open. Someone used the spare key. There was a pause on the other end, then a sigh. "Honey, are you sure you didn't just forget to lock it? You've been so stressed lately. Maybe you—" "Mom, I'm not crazy. The lock is broken. Someone took him." I hung up before she could finish her sentence and called Darcy. She didn't answer. I called again and again. Nothing. I started to shake. My vision blurred and I felt the world tilting sideways. I sat down on the floor, my back against the wall, and tried to breathe. Waffles was my anchor. Without him, I was lost. And then I remembered. I'd bought Waffles a smart collar 6 months ago. It had GPS tracking, sleep monitoring, and a built-in LED light for night walks. I'd joked at the time that I was turning my dog into a cyborg, but now that stupid piece of technology was my only hope. I grabbed my phone and opened the app. The little dot appeared, blinking on a map of the city. It was moving, heading toward downtown. I zoomed in and saw the street, the building, the exact coordinates. Darcy's building. I knew because she'd sent me a photo of her morning view from the rooftop just last week. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My own sister. She didn't just take my dog. She took the thing that kept me sane. The thing that made me feel like I wasn't drowning in my own head. And she didn't even ask. She just took. I grabbed my keys and my jacket and started driving. The city blurred past me, the traffic lights blending into streaks of red and green. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, my chest still tight, but I kept my eyes on the road. I was going to get my dog back. When I arrived at Darcy's building, the doorman looked at me like I was a stray dog myself. I was wearing sweatpants, mismatched socks, and a hoodie that had a coffee stain on the sleeve. I didn't care. "I'm here to see my sister," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Apartment 1402, he checked his list. "I don't see your name, miss." "Call her. Tell her Rowan is here." He picked up the phone and spoke in hushed tones. I watched his face go through a series of expressions. Neutral, confused, slightly uncomfortable. He hung up and turned to me with the apologetic look. "She says she's not home." I laughed. It was a hollow sound, more bitter than amused. I pulled out my phone and opened the caller app. Waffles was in the building. His little dot was right there, blinking innocently on the map. "Tell her I know," I said. "Tell her I can see where he is." The doorman paused, clearly out of his depth. Then he picked up the phone again. This time, the conversation was longer. He hung up and sighed. She says to come up. I rode the elevator in silence, watching the numbers climb. 14 floors between me and my dog. 14 floors between me and my sister. When the doors opened, Darcy was waiting in the hallway. Her arms were crossed, her face arranged in that particular expression she uses when she's about to make you feel crazy for something she did. She was wearing a silk robe, her hair in a messy but somehow perfect bun, and she smelled like expensive lavender. Rowan, I can explain, she said. Where is Waffles? He's fine. He's in the living room. He's been having the best time, honestly. Your apartment is so small and he's been so anxious lately. He's not anxious. He's my support dog. And you took him without asking. Darcy rolled her eyes. See, this is what I'm talking about. You're so attached. He's a dog, Rowan. You treat him like he's a medical device. It's not healthy. I stepped past her into the apartment. Waffles was lying on a white shag rug, his tail thumping lazily. He looked happy, content. He had no idea he was the subject of a war. Waffles, I called softly. Come here, buddy. He stood up, trotted over, and leaned against my leg. I crouched down and buried my face in his fur, breathing in his familiar scent. I felt my heart rate slow, the tightness in my chest loosening. He's coming home with me, I said, standing up. And if you ever do something like this again, I'll call the police. Darcy laughed. The police? For a dog? Don't be dramatic. I was just trying to help. You need to learn to let go. This codependent thing you have going on isn't healthy. I didn't respond. I just walked to the elevator, Waffles at my side, and pressed the button. But as the doors closed, I saw Darcy's expression shift. The smugness faded, replaced by something colder, calculating. She wasn't done with me yet. Back in my apartment, I sat on the floor with Waffles, trying to process what had just happened. My own sister had broken into my home, stolen my dog, and then had the audacity to lecture me about codependency. I should have been furious, and I was. But I was also hurt, deeply, deeply hurt. I called my mother again. This time she answered on the first ring. Rowan, I was just about to call you. I got a text from Darcy. Let me guess. She told you I showed up at her apartment and made a scene. She said you were agitated. She's worried about you. I felt the rage building again. She broke into my apartment, Mom. She took Waffles. She didn't ask. She didn't even tell me. And you're taking her side? I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm just saying she was trying to help. You've been so stressed lately and she thought a little time apart might be good for you. A little time apart? I laughed, the sound hollow. She literally kidnapped my dog. And you're defending her. There was a pause on the other end. Then more quietly, Darcy has been going through some things too, you know. Her boyfriend Kyle has been talking about moving. She's been feeling insecure. Maybe she just wanted some company. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mother, who had always played referee between us, was defending the indefensible. But I was tired. Tired of being the difficult one. Tired of being the one who had to understand everyone else's feelings while my own were dismissed. Mom, I have to go. I'll talk to you later. I hung up and sat in silence for a long time. Waffles rested his head on my knee, his big brown eyes looking up at me with pure, uncomplicated love. I stroked his ears and tried to breathe, but the anger didn't go away. It festered. It grew. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I started planning. Darcy, meanwhile, was fuming in her high-rise apartment. She'd spent the morning preparing for a video shoot, her Manifestation Monday content, but the encounter with Rowan had thrown her off completely. How dare she show up here like that? She muttered to Kyle, who was scrolling on his phone, in her sweatpants. Making a scene. The doorman is probably going to tell everyone. Kyle barely looked up. She wanted her dog back. I mean, you did take her dog. It's not her dog. It's our family's dog. I grew up with him too. You grew up with the dog she adopted 3 years ago? Darcy ignored him. She opened her Instagram, where the photo of Waffles was already getting traction. People loved dogs. They loved the wholesome energy. Her engagement had spiked. See? She'd done Rowan a favor. The dog was getting exposure. He was building a following. If Rowan wasn't so selfish, she'd see that. But there was a nagging voice in the back of Darcy's mind. The voice that reminded her she'd used a spare key. That she'd known Rowan would be at work. That she'd deliberately avoided her sister's calls, the voice she'd been ignoring for years. It didn't matter. She'd always been the one who got things done, the one who made things happen. Rowan was just stagnant, stuck in her little apartment, in her little life with her little dog. Darcy was the one who was going places, the one who had a following, the one who had a future. And that future, she decided, was going to include Waffles. 3 days later, I got another notification. The Smart Collar app pinged. Waffles was on the move again. I opened the map and stared at the blinking dot. Darcy's building again. But this time, the dot was moving faster. I zoomed in and saw it was in a car. A car heading out of the city. Heading toward the mountains. My heart dropped. She was taking him somewhere. Somewhere far. Somewhere I might not be able to follow. I grabbed my keys and called my best friend Maya. I need you to come with me. I said, my voice shaking. It's happening again. Maya arrived in 20 minutes. She's a paramedic, so she's good in a crisis. We drove toward the mountains, following the little dot on my phone. It was leading us to a property I didn't recognize. A cabin. Darcy's wellness retreat cabin, the one she'd been posting about for months. When we pulled up, I saw Darcy's car in the driveway, and Waffles tied to a post on the porch, looking confused and scared. I got out and walked toward the cabin. Darcy opened the door before I could knock. She was wearing a flowy dress and too much mascara. "Rowan, you need to leave," she said, her voice icy. "You're not welcome here. You took my dog again. He's fine. He's been doing some forest therapy. It's good for him. He's not yours, Darcy. He's mine. And I'm calling the police," Darcy laughed. "The police? For a dog? They're not going to do anything." But I'd already taken out my phone. Not to call the police, but to open the Collar app. I pulled up the data, the GPS tracks, the sleep logs, the location history, everything. "I have proof," I said. "Proof that you took him from my apartment. Proof that he's been at your building for days. Proof that you brought him here without my consent. I'm going to the police, and I'm going to post every single piece of this on social media. Your followers should know what kind of person they're following." Darcy's face went pale. "You wouldn't. Try me." For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Then Darcy stepped aside. "Take him. But you're going to regret this, Rowan. You always regret everything." I didn't respond. I walked past her, untied Waffles, and carried him to the car. Maya was waiting with the engine running. As we drove away, I looked back at the cabin. Darcy was standing on the porch, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. But I saw her pull out her phone. She was already plotting, already planning her next move. The war, I realized, was far from over. The next week was a blur of legal consultations, police reports, and tense conversations with my mother. I filed a report for theft, though the police were reluctant to pursue it. They said it was a domestic issue. They said I should try to work it out with my sister. They didn't understand. They couldn't. Waffles wasn't just a dog. He was my lifeline. But Darcy didn't stop. She started posting veiled accusations on her Instagram, talking about toxic family members and people who don't understand boundaries. She never named me, but her followers knew. They started sending me messages, DMs filled with cruelty and judgment. "Your sister is so strong for dealing with you. You're just jealous of her success. Let her have the dog. She deserves it more." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my phone into the nearest river. But instead, I did something else. I started documenting everything, every post, every passive-aggressive caption, every message her followers sent me. I built a case, not for the police, but for the court of public opinion. And then my mother called. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't apologize for taking Darcy's side. She just said, "We need to talk, all three of us, at the house." This weekend, I knew it was a trap. My mother always wanted to talk when she wanted to force a reconciliation. But I agreed anyway, because I had something to say, and I was done staying silent. The family home was the same as always. Overstuffed furniture, too many knickknacks, the faint smell of potpourri and regret. My mother was in the kitchen making tea like she was hosting a book club, not mediating a war. Darcy arrived first. She wore designer jeans and a face full of makeup. She looked like she'd just stepped off a photo shoot. I was in jeans and a hoodie. "I didn't care. Let's keep this calm," my mother said, setting down a tray of cookies. "We're all adults here. Let's talk like adults." I looked at my sister. "You stole my dog." "I borrowed him." "You broke into my apartment." "You used a spare key." "You took him without asking." "That's theft." Darcy rolled her eyes. "He was suffering, Rowan, in that tiny apartment. With your anxiety and your stress. He needed fresh air. He needed space. I was trying to help." "Help?" I laughed. "You took my support animal. The thing I literally need to function, and you called it help." My mother held up her hand. "Enough. Darcy, you can't just take someone's dog. Rowan, you can't just show up and make scenes. We need to find a compromise." "A compromise?" I stared at her. "There is no compromise. He's my dog." End of story. Darcy stood up. "You know what? This is exactly why I moved out. You're impossible. You're selfish. You think the world revolves around you and your anxiety, and you think the world revolves around your Instagram feed." The argument escalated. Words were thrown like grenades. My mother tried to mediate, but she was useless. She'd always taken Darcy's side, always rationalized her behavior, always made me feel like I was the difficult one. But then I pulled out my phone. I opened the folder I'd been building, the screenshots, the location data, the DMs from her followers. I put it on the table. "This is everything," I said. "Every post, every message, every piece of evidence. I'm not asking for an apology. I'm not asking for a compromise. I'm telling you that if this happens again, I'm posting all of it. Her followers will know what she did. Her sponsors will know. She'll lose everything. Darcy stared at the phone. Her face went pale. You're threatening me? I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. My mother started crying. This is not how family treats each other. This is not who we are, but I was done. Done with the guilt trips. Done with the performances. Done with pretending that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. I stood up. I'm not going to apologize for fighting for my dog. And I'm not going to pretend that what she did was okay just because we share DNA. If you want a relationship with me, Mom, you need to start treating me like a person. Not a problem. I walked out. Waffles was waiting in the car. I drove home in silence, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Months passed. Darcy never apologized. She didn't need to. I'd stopped waiting, but something shifted. The family group chat, once a minefield of passive aggression, became quieter. My mother stopped defending Darcy's behavior. She still called, still tried to mend bridges, but she'd stopped making excuses. Darcy's posts became less frequent. Her follower count started to drop. I didn't check often, but I noticed. And when I did, I felt a small, petty satisfaction. She'd built her brand on being the good sister, and I'd exposed the truth. I didn't post the evidence. I didn't have to. The threat of it was enough. Darcy knew I had the power to destroy her, and that knowledge changed the dynamic between us. She didn't like it, but she respected it. And Waffles? He slept on my bed every night. He was happy, he was safe, and he was mine. The day I got the email from a lawyer, Darcy's lawyer, I thought it was a lawsuit, but it wasn't. It was a letter of apology. No conditions. No demands. Just, I'm sorry for what I did. It was wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. I didn't respond. I didn't forgive her, but I didn't hate her either. I just let her go. Some things I realized weren't worth fighting over, but my dog was always worth fighting for, and I'd won. That was enough.